Good. This is very healthy. No, this bruising here. It's yeah, I think. Okay. Can I take a look at your wound?
Patient need feeding.
He hasn't eaten anything yet?
No. Just sips water.
Okay. Is he doesn't have nausea or vomiting?
No.
No, very good.
No.
When was the first time you drank water? Today? Yesterday? With this. Hey. Okay, good. Now, hey, like this. Very good. Okay. So his median and possibly his ulnar nerve might affect it as well. So on March 23rd, I don't know, it was probably 8:30 in the morning, something like that. Or sorry, 8:30 at night. I was going down to the surgery. But he's doing. See, he's going to do it himself if we don't. But he's doing pretty well. Yeah. Operation. So I'm grateful. But yeah, so that's what happened that day. I was headed down to the ward. This guy needed an operation. I came in and took a look at him, and because it took a while to assess him and figure out what was going on, I got stuck in fantastic. Yeah, that's awesome. His colostomy looks very good. I don't know, it probably hasn't produced anything. His drain is not putting out blood. His chest tube is not putting out blood. So it's good. I hope he can survive. You know, he's much better than he was before. So thank you guys for taking care of him. No, it's my case, but your case also. You took care of him also. I saved my life on March 23rd. Actually, I was in our EMT living quarters, which are just over there on the 4th floor, and I was going to go down to Ibrahim's room to change his visa, and that led to a humongous mass casualty event here, like nothing I've ever seen. I was actually a resident, a surgical resident during the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013, I guess it was, and every hospital in Boston considers that like a seminal event for them, and and rightly so, but the single mass casualty event that we saw here on the 18th, which wasn't even the biggest one that this hospital has seen in the past 15 months, and they've seen like several a day sometimes, it wasn't even close. Like the marathon bombing doesn't even compare to what we saw here. It was completely wild. I myself did 6 hemorrhage control operations on that one day. That's just totally outrageous. So these guys need assistance. They need help. They need people to come in, and they also need some protection. Like we were just walking around the male surgical ward, which was literally blown up a few days ago by an Israeli missile. I could have been down there, it's true, but I hope that the fact that I'm here in this hospital as an American means that the Israelis maybe used a smaller munition instead of just destroying the entire hospital because they didn't want to kill me or kill Mark Perlmutter or kill the Italians and the Moroccans and the Belgians that are here. So that's part of my role here as well. So why did you why did you choose to stay and continue working despite the dangers? So when I came here the first time and this time and before when I've worked in the West Bank as well, I know that the situation of the occupied territories is unique in the world. It's a unique attack on the United Nations, it's a unique attack on healthcare, it's a unique attack on schooling, it's a unique attack on universities, on poets, on literally everything. And so I accepted a long time ago that if I wanted to work with the Palestinians, I just had to accept that the Israelis might kill me while I'm here. I didn't think they would do it deliberately, but the violence is often very random. Like more than half the patients sometimes that I see in the emergency room with grievous, serious injuries are small children. I'm talking about like under 10, under 12, and often under 5. So you just have to accept that risk if you're going to work here. It's not pleasant. I don't relish the thought of being hurt, being killed. But that's just the reality of working here, unfortunately. How did the situation in Gaza compare when you arrived during the ceasefire versus after the breaking of the ceasefire? I guess I would just rephrase the question a little bit. So on January 19th, Hamas and Israel agreed to a ceasefire, and there were lots of provisions to that ceasefire. There was the allowance of humanitarian aid that was never lived up to. There was the entrance of tents that was never lived up to. There was the entrance of mobile homes that was never lived up to. There was the evacuation of civilian wounded and sick that was never agreed. That was never lived up to. And there was the evacuation of wounded combatants as well. That was also never fully lived up to. But nevertheless, Hamas did live up to every single requirement of the ceasefire. It released the hostages properly. It released everyone that it said it was going to. There was one mix-up with one body that had been dead for months. That's hardly surprising that kind of thing could happen. Nobody thinks that Hamas is some nice organization or something, but they're, it's brutal. But they did what they said they were going to do, and the Israelis did not. But nevertheless, Hamas agreed to the ceasefire and upheld it. And during that time, there was much less violence in Gaza, that's for sure. People's homes were still collapsing on them. Actually, the first operation I did here was a guy, 24-year-old guy, I think, who he was coming to visit, or he went back to the ruins of his old home to try and find his father's body that he knew was buried in there. And while he was looking through and trying to clear the rubble, the home collapsed on him and tore his left kidney off of his aorta, so he had to stop him from bleeding to death. And he did fine, but like these are the kinds of injuries we were seeing. The Israelis were still killing several people a day, sometimes 5, sometimes 10, usually by shooting, either with drones or with whatever, who knows. But obviously, when the ceasefire, when the widespread bombing campaign really kicked off, was the morning of March 18th. We were sleeping in our EMT quarters just over there, and the bombs. I mean, they didn't hit the hospital, so I don't want to give them this impression. But the bombs were just so powerful that they actually blew the door to our living quarters open and smashed into the cabinet behind it. Woke everybody up. We were all like, "Holy crap!" And so that's how we woke up, and then of course we could hear widespread bombardment. I mean, it was just massive. So we all of course went down to the emergency room and started caring for the injured. The Nasser medical complex saw 22% of all the injured and dead that day in all of Gaza, because again, this is right now the biggest hospital in the Gaza Strip. Shifa is bigger, but it's not actually functionally. It's not really functioning in a big capacity right now. So we all went down there, and it was just total. A mass casualty event is always chaos. When hundreds of people literally are brought to the hospital in 4 hours, half of whom are seriously injured children, it's always going to be very chaotic. But the Palestinians did a very good job there with Khaled Al-Sayr, who was a general surgeon here. He's quite a well-known guy, and also the on-call nursing supervisor led the mass casualty event from the front of the hospital. They did a phenomenal job with it, dividing patients into green, yellow, and red, and black tagging a lot of them appropriately. Black tagging means that you just look at the person, you say they're dead. Either they're decapitated or they have no pulse, and in a mass casualty situation, you just can't possibly try to save them, because the resources you would use could be better used on other people who can survive. And so, it's very hard to black tag children, and especially small children, like 4, 5, 6 years old. And there are so many children in the society that we're receiving huge numbers of seriously injured kids. So I went to the red area along with Dr. Morgan McMonigal, Dr. Tanya Haj Hassan. There were plenty of Palestinian doctors and nurses there as well. In 5 minutes, it was like impossible to even move. It was just fully packed with mostly with wounded kids on the floor. The first kid I found was a little girl, which was I think maybe 4 years old, maybe 3, maybe 5. It's hard to tell, but especially when they're so mangled. But she had a bunch of shrapnel injuries to her face and her head, and she had what's called agonal breathing. So I had to tell her dad, she's going to die. There's absolutely nothing we can do about it. You have to pick her up and you have to take her over to the area where children are allowed to die quietly with their families, which unfortunately is a real thing.